2020 has been an extremely strange year with just, well, so much craziness happening in the world. But in the midst of all this craziness, if there's one thing that's been pretty consistent, it's that studios and movie companies now having their movie theaters and more or less outdoor activities all canceled, at least for the foreseeable future, they have all decided they want to get in on that sweet streaming cheddar, and we have been consistently getting new streaming service after new streaming service after new streaming service. And one of the more intriguing ones was one that was actually in development for a long time before the pandemic hit, which was called Quibi. Quibi, for those of you who are not aware, is the end result of media mogul Jeffrey Katzenberg and CEO Meg Whitman. The idea behind Quibi is pretty simple. Jeffrey Katzenberg said that a lot of people have cell phones. In fact, more people have cell phones than they have TVs, and he wants to capture that market kind of like YouTube has. So he decided he wants to bring high-level Hollywood, big-budget talent that is normally reserved for the big screen to a small screen. And as a result, he has invested billions of dollars into Quibi, which stands for Quick Bites. The idea is simple. You watch a show and it lasts somewhere between 3 to 9 minutes long, and it's exclusive to your phone. You can watch it in either widescreen or you can watch it vertically in this cropped little fashion, although a couple shows have done some really interesting things. In the cases of all the shows, they are equipped to be viewed with either version, so, regardless how you like to watch your phone, you can watch it, although I do think you should do it widescreen, and we will explain why during this review. Now, being stuck indoors like so many of you, I had lots and lots of time to watch streaming content, and Quibi gave me a 3-month free trial. So I spent that 3 months, or as much of as I could, watching as many Quibi shows as possible, and I have decided to review them all here so that you know exactly what to watch or what not to watch. Now, please keep in mind that this review has been going on for a long time, and Quibi has actually continued to add new shows. So let's just say these are all the shows from the first month or so, with a few exceptions. I'm not going to be reviewing every single news program or sporting event commentary thing, or, all those. We're talking about like their actual shows, the ones that have actors and scripts and all that jazz. Let's keep it simple because, of course, news will fit with Quibi's format. The question is, will major blockbuster shows with a big budget fit on the short format and on a small screen? So, anyway, I'm Kevin, your entrepreneur, and I watched almost all of Quibi's original programming so that you don't have to. Now, we're going to go through all the shows fairly quickly because since the shows aren't very long, I think the review should be just as equally brief. And we'll start with Flipped. This series is about two people I can't stand trying to have their own makeover show. The premise truly needs a dedicated 30-minute pilot to properly start establishing things, and the short format really shows its limit when it comes to scripted comedies. When the Streetlights Go On. This show strikes me as Quibi's answer to the CW's Riverdale. It's a murder mystery with teenager school teachers, a Jimmy Kimmel lookalike, and a narrator who is writing the story as it goes along. The main difference is this series is meant to be taken more seriously than Riverdale. The difference is, well, Riverdale is cheesy, but it's fun. Sometimes the more outrageous a show is, the more enticing it is to watch on a weekly basis. By the way, I just want to say I'm fully aware that's not Jimmy Kimmel. That's not the point. It's a joke. Let's move on. We've only got a short amount of time to do all these shows, but we've got a lot of them to do. Still, this is one of the more satisfying shows on the platform, mainly because it sets up its premise well in the first episode and keeps you interested all the way until the last. If there's a breakout hit in the platform, this is it. 50 States of Fright. This was actually written and directed by Spider-Man director Sam Raimi, so I had a lot of hope for this one. It's a horror anthology series, except in bite-sized form. This series is one of the more fun series to watch, and my only real complaint is that I think it would play better on a regular-sized TV, which Quibi doesn't offer yet, but we'll get to that later. Survive. This show revolves around someone who wants to commit suicide, so it actually has a warning before it begins. Fitting, since the series stars Sansa from Game of Thrones. It's a horror series where Sansa lives in a mental hospital, and you can probably see where this is going before I even finish that sentence. Though I'll give Survive credit, as the mental hospital setting is perfect for a horror series, and the short format does give the series a spontaneity that works pretty well in small bursts. Where it fails is, of course, the long-form storytelling and even a general understanding of what the show is about in the first few episodes. But if you like to be disturbed in short forms, I can see this working for you. Another series from Funny or Die, Aqua Donkeys, because apparently someone thought that name was worth going with, stars two idiots who work at a hotel and want to date the only girl who works at the establishment. The two boys are lazy, stupid, and though it's not confirmed, they act like stoners who Wait a minute. This sounds exactly like Meet the Deedles, the 1998 Disney movie about two surfers who are stupid, total losers and want to date the stepdaughter of the Yellowstone Park ranger. It's the exact same thing, except Aqua Donkey is more raunchy. Otherwise, the premise wasn't funny then, and it's not funny now. Fierce Queens. If there's any series on Quibi that screams, you're overthinking things just a little bit, it's Fierce Queens. It's a documentary series about wild animals that for some reason has introductions and narration by Reese Witherspoon, a situation that caused a lot of problems over at Quibi when it was time for job cuts. It's like someone pointed out that wildlife programs were cheap and made decent money, and someone said, all right, so let's do that, but let's make our show unnecessarily expensive by hiring Reese Witherspoon to host. Seriously, any actor working for scale would have been happy to do this, and the results would have been the same. I promise. This is a documentary series about basketball superstar LeBron James making a school for inner city cities and attempting to try and better the community. Despite a premise that seems entirely egocentric, I Promise ended up being one of my favorite series on the platform. It does a good job at highlighting the real need for good teachers, supplies for the kids, and well-kept buildings. LeBron seems like someone who truly does care about trying to fix the broken school system, and even though documentaries have been highlighting these problems for years at this point, not only is it worth reminding people that we have a long way to go, but it is truly one of the standout series on a platform that for the most part is sorely lacking. Though it's unlikely to leave the cultural mark of Tiger King or Making a Murderer, it comes the closest out of all the Quibi series to creating the kind of word-of-mouth money can't buy. Along with #FreeRaySean. Before we begin, I have to say this up front. Please stop creating shows with hashtags in the title. It's very tacky, and it immediately turns me off from watching whatever it is you are producing. With that said, #FreeRaySean ended up being one of the best series on the platform. It's a drama of a man who claims he was set up by the police for a crime he didn't commit. Aside from the fact that this series begs to be filmed in 40-minute installments, this has by far one of the best hooks of all the shows, high production values, and even has Morpheus himself in the show, which is always cool. One thing I will note is that the show is filmed in the 2.35:1 aspect ratio, which means this is one show you do not want to watch vertically because the images will be severely compromised if you do, which does make you wonder how dedicated Quibi is to their own cell phone viewing philosophy. Nikki Fresh with a $. Alright, I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but here it goes. This may be my favorite thing on Quibi. Don't get me wrong, it's a bad show. But what's amazing is how uniquely bad it is. Only on a brand new streaming service that is desperate to try anything out could we get a show like this. It claims to be a reality series about how Nicole Richie, yeah, that Nicole Richie, wants $1 million to record an album and music video for Plants to listen to. Now, part of me wants to think that this is more of a mockumentary than anything, and yet not only is this Nicole Richie, who has a reputation for not being the brightest bulb in the room, but it contains crazy scenes like these. The look on their faces and the disbelief in their voice are so genuine you can't help but feel like there's a huge element of truth to this. Nikki Fresh isn't exactly a good show, but it's a fascinating disaster I couldn't help but love. The Stranger. In what might be the most relevant show to my viewers, The Stranger follows a rideshare driver who drives for an Uber-like service called Orbit and picks up a creepy passenger. The sad thing about this show is that whenever I see a series that's based on Uber, it's so obvious how the writers don't actually drive rideshare. The show takes the very basic premise where a woman picks up a crazy guy and ends up having to drive him anywhere he asks, or risk getting killed. If you need to understand why the short format doesn't work well for stories like this, I recommend you take the time to watch Michael Mann's Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx. Yeah, it's a lot longer, but when you see how much better the story is because it builds up to the cab ride from hell, you come to The Stranger and realize just how forced everything is because it has to adhere to less than 10 minutes. It's one of the better setups for a show on Quibi. It just doesn't have time to breathe and develop into something memorable. Most Dangerous Game. This was actually supposed to be a movie you would pay to see in theaters, which instead has been released as a mobile series for Quibi. I'm not sure how you can see that as anything other than a downgrade, but I'll give the show this. It sure is expensive looking for a mobile show. The series stars Liam Hemsworth as a man dying of cancer who agrees to be a human hunting target for an organization run by Christoph Waltz for millions of dollars, and yeah, this is basically a poor man's version of the Hunger Games and Battle Royale. Or the game, if you want to get even more obscure. The most entertaining thing about it is watching Walt's act circles around Hemsworth. Still, it has a few thrills and was one of the few series I actually finished, so I guess that's a point for them. Speedrun. In the most obvious attempt to compete with YouTube, Speedrun is presented by Polygon, who takes news articles and opinion pieces and adapt them into short news segment programs. Being a gamer, this was all interesting to me, but since you can get all this stuff on YouTube for free with people who go into much more depth than anything you see here, I don't know why Jeffrey Katzenberg thinks gamers are going to pay for Quibi to watch it. Nightgowns. A behind-the-scenes look at Nightgowns, one of the top drag shows. Sasha Velour gives a surprisingly intimate look at the show, as well as the decisions that go into the creative process. Prodigy. This is a sports documentary series chronicling potential future sports superstars. The idea behind the show is actually a good one, but the problem is it's too short to really get into the life of any of the subjects at hand. Basically, this is no Hoop Dreams. Chrissy's Court. In a strange way, this was one of the few shows that displays the potential of the short format. Court shows typically throw in 2 to 3 cases in a single 30-minute episode, and putting them up on a service that splits them up might actually be a good use for the short format platform. Instead, it's being used for Chrissy's Court, a parody of the courtroom format that stars Chrissy Teigen as a judge presiding over humorous cases. Truthfully, the show isn't bad per se, but its sole joke is that Chrissy is an uneducated model presiding over quote-unquote real cases. A couple of episodes are funny, but I wouldn't watch too many in a row. You know, it dawns on me that one of the downsides to Quibi is that the episodes are so short, I find myself getting impatient if the series don't hook me in the first minute or so, which is a level of ADD I don't think I'm ready to accept into my life, and I really don't like that thought. Run This City, another docuseries. This is one about Massachusetts Mayor Giselle Correia II, the youngest man elected to be mayor in the history of Massachusetts. At first, the series plays out like a political ad for Correia running for president. However, the series takes a very unexpected turn when Correia is indicted by the FBI relating to charges involving his former company. What I thought would be a complete waste of time ended up being one of the best series on the platform with twists and turns, and has the potential to be one of those documentary series that has the whole nation talking. You know, assuming Quibi takes off. Dismantled is another cooking show with a gimmick. The gimmick is that 2 chefs have to eat food that has been blown up and then need to recreate the dish. I'm going to be honest, I care so little about this premise, I couldn't even bother to finish 1 episode. Dummy. In this series, Poppy from Trolls World Tour plays a beautiful actress dating an ugly Emmy winner who is having physical relations with a sex doll that comes alive to talk to Poppy. It's amazing to think someone got a grant for $1.7 billion slush fund to make this dumb thing, but whatever. Shape of Pasta. Oh look, another cooking show. However, unlike most cooking shows on Quibi, this one is actually one you can watch seriously, as a chef goes to Italy to study all the different kinds of pasta that is made there. It feels more like a show you'd find on the Food Network than one you'd find on Quibi, but I could see a show like this being of high value to food aficionados. And music. Most of us go to a concert and pay attention to the music, but few of us think about the show around us. And music follows a DJ as he shares his secrets on how he creates the memorable lights that makes a concert the visual experience it can be. Watching it even made me realize how much music concerts have become about spectacle, which is an odd concept when you realize that you go to a concert to listen to the music. All in all, I'd say this one is interesting enough to give a shot. Memory Hole is hosted by Batman from the Lego Movie, sharing moments in history that the world has largely forgotten about. While it could be argued that these moments were better left forgotten, I will admit that the show brings up such ridiculous things from memories past, you can't help but laugh at the absurdity of what is being discussed and wonder yourself when Quibi is going to be discussed on the show in the future. Sorry, I know, that was a cheap shot, but I couldn't resist. Murder Flip House. Now, this is something else entirely. You know all those home renovation shows? You know, the only shows made that are suitable for family audiences these days? Well, this is one of those, with the twist being that the houses being renovated are homes where murders took place in. The twist aside, the show otherwise follows the setup as you'd expect, where renovation experts come in to make the house more appealing to view, as well as throwing in some spiritual experts to cleanse the building. Who knows, if you like home renovation shows, this one likely provides enough of a twist to warrant a marathon or 2. Iron Sharpens Iron. I wasn't expecting to like this show too much, seeing that I'm not a fan of sports, but the idea of watching sports professionals from different games training each other and seeing what they could learn from a sport they don't play and apply to their sport, well, I have to say, it ended up being an interesting watch. Punk'd, the MTV reality show where celebrities get pranked returns, except Ashton Kutcher has been replaced with Chance the Rapper. Otherwise, this is another series that works surprisingly well in short chunks. Otherwise, you pretty much know what you're getting with this one, and it completely depends on how much you find semi-famous people having meltdowns entertaining. Personally, I think the novelty wore thin once Twitter came along, but you do you, right? The sauce. For everyone who was watching American Idol and liked the concept but wanted it to be about freestyle dancing, well, this is for you. Kids dance off against one another for a chance to go to LA, and that's about all I have to say about it. Singled Out. This is a dating show produced by MTV. I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to say about this one, so let's move on. Gamey Show. This show pits two straight men against one another to see who will be crowned an honorary gay man. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be funny or offensive, but it sure as heck isn't fun to watch. Skirt with Offset. This one feels more like a glorified car commercial than a show. It's basically two rappers who are testing out fancy, custom-made cars on the road and talking about how great they are. There's a lot of focus put onto a vehicle design and car logos. I'm not sure when I would ever be buying a car that drops smoke bombs on the road, but then I drive a crappy Corolla, so maybe I'm just the wrong audience for this show. You Ain't Got These, and here we have what's going to be truly selling Quibi to a mass audience. A documentary on sneaker culture. Okay, I'm totally being sarcastic there. But in all seriousness, the show is a lot better than you'd expect, and the series does a great job of making a case for why sneakers are the multi-billion-dollar industry they are, and does a great job at showing how important sneakers are to the culture. Though I won't be paying $500 for a pair of sneakers anytime soon, this had a lot more to say about why people obsess over sneakers than you'd think, and it does so with a lot of intelligence and a lot of interesting observations. Elba versus Block. In this series, Idris Elba gets into various racing contests with Ken Block. I suppose this is about the closest we're going to get to a live-action Fast and Furious. The obstacles are hard to believe and the racing is intense, so if that's your thing, this is for you. Reno 911. What do you want me to say about this one? It's a revival of Reno 911. You've had 10 years to decide whether you like it or not. Which, personally, I do, so I'm pretty happy this is back in a format that honestly makes more sense as mini episodes than as a full half-hour program. It's also the best thing to currently watch on Quibi, which says an awful lot about the new shows. After all, how great can you say these shows are overall when the best thing on it is a show that premiered more than a decade ago? What's more amazing is this is the only show that actually takes advantage of Quibi's unique vertical customization. What does that tell you about the overall service? Fight Like a Girl. I'm not sure what to make of this one. I want to call it a ripoff of The Biggest Loser, but it's more like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy with WWE superstars. Sort of, kind of, again, this is weird. It follows 10 women who are put under the wing WWE fighters to, quote, better themselves, put themselves, and something themselves, unquote. Honestly, it's hard to figure out exactly what the end game for this one is. Each episode ends with one of the women walking down a stage and showing off how much weight she's lost. But again, this is not about losing weight. The end goal is... who are we kidding? This is a weight loss reality show with WWE. Let's Roll with Tony Greenhand. Finally, we have a cooking show about a professional cannabis cooker who makes custom cannabis food dishes and... I'm sorry, I'm not gonna lie, this series isn't for me. I've never smoked weed in my life, don't ever plan to, and so this series has minimal entertainment value. And we're near the end of this review, so let's just wrap this up. Maybe we'll appeal to some people with eccentric tastes, but not me. And that is Quibi and most of their shows. Again, this episode has been in the making for a long time, and the more I worked on it, the more I realized I just can't review all the shows that's going to be on Quibi's service. They just have way too much. But overall, I would say it's average. I think some of the shows are very good. I watched all those as fast as I could so that, I'd have them watched. But it's not like Quibi's putting a whole bunch of great content out there. Most of the shows are average at best. I don't think the short format is really good for most of these shows. I think most of these shows need to be in longer formats to really have better scripts and better character development and a better setup. There is talk about the Quibi app also coming to a TV, which I think would be a great next step because, especially during a pandemic, people just don't want to be watching on the phone. You got to put the phone on the ground or you have to hold it. It's really not comfortable. In fact, what I've been doing is I've been putting this on my tripod stand that I use to film videos so that I can just sit there and I can just watch it like this. And that kind of works, but it's not the most comfortable experience in the world. Now, my 3-month free trial is pretty much coming to an end this weekend, and I don't think I'm going to keep it. I think I'm definitely going to cancel the service. I don't think it has a whole lot to offer me in the future. Maybe one day there'll be a show where I just absolutely have to watch it, but it seems kind of weird that the two payment plans they have is the $5 ones with ad and the $8 ones without ads. I do think that, for something like this quirky, it should probably be free with ads and paid without ads because it's not like there's a whole lot selling the service here. But anyway, I would like to know, what are your thoughts on Quibi, the shows? Do you like any of these shows? Is there anything here you absolutely cannot live without? I would love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. I'm your host, the Entrepreneur, and thank you for watching.